John had a wonderful sense of humour, which is belied sometimes by, I think, journalists' impression of him, which was that they often called him irascible.
The man had a natural way with his ability as an actor. He found his way through to the centre of each character that he played, and played them with tremendous sincerity and honesty.
I think the sex symbol stuff made him laugh a lot. It made me laugh a lot.
John Thaw was born in 1942 in Manchester, the elder of two brothers. His father was a long-distance lorry driver who brought the two boys up alone. Their mother, Dorothy, abandoned the family when John was only 7.
John made no secret of the fact that his origins were really quite humble, a council estate somewhere in Manchester. And he left school, I think, with 1 O-level, was working as a porter in a fruit and vegetable market in Manchester, but a drama teacher saw John and persuaded him to sort of get involved in amateur dramatics, and it was clear, I think, that he had a great talent, and he was then persuaded, somewhat reluctantly, I think, to apply for a scholarship to RADA, which he won.
John and I met in 1960, when we were both students at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. I was 21, he was only 16. He was very shy, and he looked frightening. Nobody dared talk to him. But, I don't know, being from similar background, I did dare talk to him. I didn't get a reply at first. But there was something about him, and we very soon became best pals.
By the time John was 20, he was playing roles in the West End and even became an understudy for Laurence Olivier. In June 1964, he married Sally Ann Alexander, and they had a daughter, Abigail, before divorcing in 1968. But while his personal life was suffering, his acting career was just starting. He landed the role of his first major TV detective in the ITV series Redcap.
Sergeant Mann, Special Investigation Branch.
Well, have to be, wouldn't you? Wearing civvies?
Headquarters Mönchengladbach told me to report to you.
Huh?
They said you had some trouble here.
Do they?
Yes, sir.
Oh.
By the time the second series was launched, the 24-year-old was well on his way to becoming a household name. Shortly afterwards, John met the love of his life, Sheila Hancock, and the couple married on Christmas Eve 1973. But John continued to work relentlessly, and in 1975 appeared in the series The Sweeney.
I mean, actually, the 4 years on that set, there was laughter all the time. I mean, we were getting told off in the end, but we were getting told, will you stop laughing? Why? What do you mean, stop laughing? This is how we do the job. I mean, if you haven't heard John Thaw singing The Sun Has Got His Hat On while dancing on one of the squad office desks, you ain't heard nothing. I mean, he used to do this, the sun has got his hat on, hip, 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 and, you know, the whole crew were gone then. I mean, he had a lovely sense of humour, as you say. I mean, he was. I wasn't aware of the perfectionist side of it. We knew we wanted to do good, and we knew we were doing a good product, or whatever you call it, and we just did the best we can. I mean, I can't. You know, we just had the happiest time you can think of.
My brother's Tommy Martin. You won't bother with him?
He's nothing, and he's away.
Who are you?
We're the Sweeney, son, and we haven't had any dinner. You've kept us waiting, so unless you want a kicking, you tell us where those photographs are.
Right, you've got 30 seconds. Or on top of motor theft, it's resisting arrest and assault with a deadly weapon. And forgery. There won't be any cars for you to nick by the time they let you out, son. You pigs will fit anybody up. Watch your mouth!
Well, I mean, the absolute proof of his generosity is the fact that we became a double act. you know, if you cast, it was written for John, he was Regan. And then we've got to have a backup just in case anything goes wrong, and there's always somebody else, there's the sidekick. So the early episodes, you know, John was standing there questioning everybody, and I was way behind and might throw in a line here and a line there. And eventually John said, look, hold on. I mean, this sounds also conceited, which I'm sorry about, but he said, look, you've got a really good actor here, and all he's doing is standing behind me all the time. And then he said, he can say that, he can say, give him some of my lines, give him some, and he made us, if you want to call it a double act, he made us become a double act, because, and that is, that's rare generosity in an actor.
I won't be a minute, then.
Going to bring one of those to work.
What do you want, George?
Young Miss Cyril phoned just after you left. Something about a lorry drag in Harlington.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, I tried to bell you, Governor. Sorry, mate, I didn't realise you were actually...
Yeah, well, it was a last-minute business.
Yeah, I always got women, or children really, coming up saying, oh, you're my mum's favourite, will you sign this? And he got adults coming up saying, you're my favourite, will you sign this? And actresses forever going on about those wonderful long eyelashes and those beautiful blue eyes and all that stuff. John found it hugely embarrassing. He didn't like all that stuff.
And we'll meet back here in 2 hours. That should give us enough. What is it, Len?
There's a woman asking for you, girl.
Oh, nice.
He will be always, I think, identified most strongly with the Sweeney and Morse. And yet, when you think about it, could you imagine two different coppers?
James Kavanagh. Lady Tibbet is expecting me.
When we cast John as Kavanagh, there were a lot of eyebrows raised by the fact that John wanted to do the part with a Manchester accent.
You're from Bolton. Looked you up. In Havers.
Ah, yes, I am.
I don't know Bolton. Chester?
It's not that far, geographically.
Very good racing at Chester.
I don't follow the horses, Lady Tibbet.
No.
Because he was a deeply politically committed man, he did have very strong egalitarian views about life.
2 Home Secretaries to the right of Genghis Khan. A decent one in between who got sacked before he could take up the case. That's all it took till the appeal system changed.
The notes are only fresh evidence, Mr. Rothstein said.
Yes. Yes, I'm also far from certain Kraken got the best defence he could. There's something I may have to raise, unfortunately.
I think he wanted to put on telly the fact that a kid from Manchester could become a QC. I think that was important to him.
The conduct of the appellant James Kraken's defence fell below, well below, the minimum standard consistent with his right to justice.
Just by bringing that to the role, he changed it from a sort of run-of-the-mill courtroom drama into somebody who was also involved in a sort of class system establishment fight. And that's why a lot of people got on his side. And he instinctively knew that.
The appellant's defence was led by Sir Ronald Tibbet.
That is the late Sir Ronald Tibbet, Queen's Counsel, subsequently a High Court judge, and until his untimely death, the Lord Justice of this court.
The very same, my lord.
It was terribly important to John that whatever he was doing when he was acting, there was an integrity there. He had to be able to believe in the role. He was never one of those actors to whom you could just throw a part and he would act it. There had to be a lot of John in it.
We didn't expect them to jump up and down with joy, Mr. Kavanagh, having you criticise one of their own.
If I'd kicked up a fuss 13 years ago, maybe.
Oh, hindsight.
I can't hold back now.
In Kavanagh, we were determined not to do Morse in a wig. I remember, there was a film in that series about the prosecution of a war criminal. And there's a marvellous scene in that where he examines in court Sarah Kesselman, who's playing an old lady who was a young woman, you know, had been brutalised by this character who's on trial. And I mean, you know, very moving.
You only met him in the special unit in the medical block. He put you in there, and he froze you. Wasn't that it? He froze you to death. And then he brought you back to life. For the Todesengel program. Why didn't he shoot her?
This is why he was a great television actor. In those close-ups, you could see behind the eyes into a man who actually could understand loneliness, but possibly more than loneliness, solitude, and be at ease with solitude.
You're troubled. A little. Quite a lot, actually. About a man. Your husband. No, not your husband, dear, but someone very, very close. Intimate.
I think, to be truthful with you, an awful lot of the ladies in the audience used to fall in love just slightly with John. They thought they would very much like to go out because he was a very interesting person, a very striking individual as a man. And I think perhaps the men thought more of him, you know, as your professional actor and so on. But I met an awful lot of ladies who said he was their real pin-up boy. I think there was that aspect of it with John, yes.
It's a combination of the smile, the opportunities for humour, the extraordinary blue eyes, I suppose, that make it all work.
Raffish, right?
Raffish?
What do you think? Bit naughty, in a nice way. Roguish. Twinkle in the eye sort of place.
Matter of fact, I've always thought of you as somewhat raffish.
Yeah. Have you?
I think the attractiveness of John as Kavanagh, it comes from a combination of things. There's his own persona, which has a certain gravitas about it.
I love being with you. I adore our weekends together. I just don't know that it's enough. You?
Much the same. So, where do we go? Closer? Some sort of permanence?
I tried marriage once, James. It didn't work.
So did I. And it did.
As a man, he's lived in the world. He has family, he has children, he has cares and emotions. He has strong feelings about life and his attitudes to it. And I think all those things bear on Kavanagh, who is a man, we believe, of integrity and humanity. And I think John has all those. So I think the man and the character are identified.
Really a policeman?
Yes.
I was sure. Do take sugar. I had you down for, well, anything other than a policeman.
Hope he doesn't stand against me.
Morse is an arrogant, rather pompous, well-educated, intellectual.
Fancy a drink, sir?
What's the matter?
Just asking if you want a drink.
Well, something's the matter. How many years have I known you? You don't often ask me to go for a drink.
I'm asking now.
All right.
Strangely enough, I know quite a decent hostelry a few minutes' drive from here.
It takes a long time to get to know John, and we shared a caravan, as he had done with Dennis in the Sweeney. And after a couple of months, you get to know John and relax, and he was the best company you could have, great fun. And
She just left communion service in the chapel. It's high, isn't it, St. Saviour's?
High? I suppose about the same
High church. Back on the job, Lewis.
John was a man of hugely affectionate and loyal person to everybody he worked with and his friends. But whenever he told us a story about someone, there was always affection in it.
He was quite a shy person in some ways, and a private individual, and he didn't really long for all the publicity and queues of people waiting to see him.
Anne, I was wondering if we could go somewhere next week after the performance to celebrate it, if you're not already...
No, I'm not doing anything. Although I expect people want to go somewhere as a group, don't you think?
Yeah, I expect so. It was just a thought.
John was a great champion of good writing. He was always chuffed to bits when a new, very good writer came on board.
We're closed. It's only a small job, a little dent on the wing. Sorry, can't help you. It's a shame because you've got such a good reputation for paint jobs. Are you winding me up? No, but I am about to wind up my window.
He's a great defender of pieces of writing as well, where most actors would look at a sentence and think that's hard for me to say and ask the director if he could change it and put it in his own words. John would never do that. He'd always imagine the writer sitting at home all night typing away, and he always said the writer knows exactly what he meant there, so it's our job to work it out.
John Thaw told me on more than one occasion that he enjoyed playing Morse more than any other telly thing he'd done. I think above all, like many actors, they prefer the stage in a way. I remember John saying that he got more flexibility for his muscles on the stage than on the telly when you're sitting around and you know, you've got all these takes. But certainly, I think that he was a wonderfully gifted man with his patience and professionalism as a telly actor.
We all miss Morse. Do you?
Yes and no. I mean, I enjoyed doing it, and dare I say, all good things have got to come to an end. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I was very proud to have done it. But you move on, you know. I know I've got close friends who are sad that it's finished.
I've got close friends who are sad the Sweeney's finished, for goodness sake.
Well, that I can't go back to.
Well, that just takes the biscuit, that does.
Liz?
I'm sorry, sir, but what the hell do you think you're playing at? First you follow me, and then you... Well, rather not then, but before. You go around and question Debbie Rep about her old man.
It was strange filming that, because I'd missed the one before. I'd sort of stopped doing them and went back to do the final one, and particularly with hindsight now, it was something that I think John's mentioned a few times since. He started actually to feel unwell doing it because he had to play Morse unwell throughout. So for 5 weeks he was playing a sick man, and I think it affected him.
All right, Lewis, you've made your point. If I trod on your toes...
In any case, you should be taking it easy, shouldn't you?
Probably.
The character I knew best, Inspector Morse, there was a lot of John. But that's often been described as a sort of rather slightly ill-tempered curmudgeon. But John wasn't that. John was a private person. John valued his privacy. What he brought to Morse was an intensity.
That. It was good. Who was it?
That, Lewis, was Maria Callas.
Was it from Cats?
No, it most certainly was not.
The wife wants to go to Cats. Don't know why. She's allergic to them.
Are you okay? Are you au fait? Are you up there with the old
reasonably.
kind of
I
music?
knew who
These
All
modern
Saints.
beat combos.
I wouldn't go that far. I sort of, I sort of know a little. I mean, as I say, I knew All Saints, and I'd heard them.
And Eminem, you presumably have a whole range of his CDs.
Oh yeah, who wouldn't?
Mm.
I've never heard of him. I've read a lot about it. I've seen him in the papers, but I wouldn't know what he sounded like or even what he said. Action!
His attitude to Morse and the success of Morse took him a little by surprise. I think it took everybody by surprise, to be honest. It was a completely new format. And quite a bold format.
Without any swing on the boom?
Several years ago, the Queen came to Washington, D.C. for some reception for British television in America, and there was a giant party at the Library of Congress and a receiving line, and several of us were in the line and were being introduced to the Queen. She was being very gracious going down the line, and I was introduced to her as the American executive producer of the Morse series, and her demeanor completely changed. She lit up like a Christmas tree and said, "Morse, is he here?"
She is a fan. I mean, it is known, and I had met her a couple of times before. Various things.
What are various functions? What sort of the Ministry of Sound or some groovy club?
Yeah, if you like. And she is a fan. She said that she liked it.
This anagram, around Eve. I've tried and I've tried, but all I can come up with is Endeavour. And no one's called Endeavour.
My father was obsessed with Captain Cook, and his ship was called Endeavour.
You poor sod.
I'm not calling you Endeavour.
Call him Sir. He likes that.
Oh, no. No, I'll stick to Morse, like everyone else.
Cheers.
Everybody was going to remember him for Inspector Morse. I suppose I do as well, but he did a wonderful piece quite recently. I think it was called Uncle Tom, where he played this wonderful old rascal.
Do you think you're the only person who ever lost anybody? It's happening to people all over. This very minute. And all because some maniac wants to rule the world.
And I felt that probably showed John Thaw in a much truer light, because he reached a depth that showed the strength of his ability as a character actor.
The first time I saw John, when he was preparing for Goodnight, Mr. Tom, I didn't know that he was going to have the beard. I said, "John, I hardly recognised you." He said, "Actually, Derek," he said, I'm auditioning to understudy one of your clients, that's Dickie Attenborough."
I had the joy of getting to know him when I first did a picture called Cry Freedom.
You need a black leader you can talk to.
Look, I don't need to tell you, this country has a special kind of problem. Shit, man, do you think I like banning and detaining people without trial? I'm a lawyer. It goes against the grain.
He won the Best Supporting Actor of the Year at BAFTA for that performance, and it can't have been more than, 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes. It was an exquisite piece of acting.
Huge acting talent, hard worker, very self-deprecating. He had a very funny sense of humour when he got his CBE. For weeks after that, whenever he found himself in a slightly undignified position on a set, or had to say something in the script that he thought was a bit iffy, he'd always say, "I can't say this, I'm a commander of the British Empire."